What if I told you there's basically an operator's manual for the male psyche? Well, that's pretty much what Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette tried to write with their book King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. So let's dive into their framework for understanding what they call the deep structures of mature masculinity. The book kicks off with this quote from William Blake, and honestly, it sets the stage perfectly. It tells you right away that these archetypes, they aren't some new fad. They're seen as these timeless, universal energies that exist inside every man, just waiting to be brought together into a perfect unity. All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start by digging into what the book calls the modern crisis of manhood. Then, we'll explore each of the four big archetypes. That's the king, warrior, magician, and lover. And finally, we'll talk about the path to actually integrating all of them. So, where do the authors kick things off? They start by arguing that men today are facing a pretty unique crisis, because unlike a lot of traditional cultures, we've mostly lost the formal rituals that used to guide boys into manhood. And without those initiations, the authors say men can get stuck in what they call boy psychology. Now, this isn't about your chronological age. It's a psychological state. And it can show up as being really aggressive and abusive or totally passive and weak. And often, it's just this painful seesaw back and forth between the two. Okay, this right here is one of the book's absolute core ideas. It kind of reframes the whole conversation around patriarchy. Look at that left column: dominating, wounding, fixated. The authors say that's not true masculinity. That's immature boy psychology acting out. The real goal, what you see on the right, is a mature man psychology, something that's nurturing, empowering, and genuinely centered. So the solution here isn't to have less masculine energy, not at all. The argument is we need to cultivate mature masculine energy. And the blueprints for doing that, the keys to unlocking this man psychology, are found in these four really powerful universal archetypes. Let's meet the first and most central archetype: the king. Think of this as the foundational energy, the part that provides order, stability, and what the authors call blessing, both in your own head and out in the world. When the king is in his fullness, he's the source of calm, of being centered. He's the part of your psyche that creates a generative, life-giving order. He doesn't just rule, he blesses, he affirms, he brings out the best in others, because he's secure and whole himself. But, and this is so important, every archetype has a shadow, and it's always bipolar. The king's active shadow is the tyrant. He fears new talent, he controls everything. But the passive shadow is just as destructive: the weakling, who feels so powerless he just gives up his authority. You see how both are rooted in fear? They're completely cut off from the king's true power. Now for the second archetype, the warrior. This is the energy of action, the part of us that gets things done, guided by skill, discipline, and a real sense of purpose. A really key part of the mature warrior is his clarity. This is not about just mindless aggression. We're talking about channeled energy, about being mentally sharp and having the guts to act in service of something bigger than your own ego. His courage comes from that self-discipline. And like the king, the warrior's shadow is bipolar. The active side is the sadist, where that discipline turns into cruelty. Think of a compulsive workaholic who just attacks life. The passive side is the masochist, the pushover who's so afraid he can't even defend his own boundaries. One is destructive, the other is self-destructive. Our third archetype is the magician. He's the master of hidden knowledge, of technique and technology. He's the thinker, the expert, the one who really gets the deeper patterns of things. The magician isn't just about spells and potions. He's the energy behind every scientist, engineer, doctor, or psychologist. It's that part of us that wants to understand complex systems, to get that special knowledge, and then use it to contain and channel power to make a change. So what's the magician's shadow? It's all about the misuse of knowledge. The active shadow is the manipulator. He hoards secrets to control people. The passive shadow is the innocent, the guy who plays dumb to dodge responsibility but is often passive-aggressively stopping things from happening. Both are totally detached from the real purpose of knowledge. And that brings us to our fourth and final archetype, the lover. This is the energy of feeling, of connection, of passion, of just being sensually alive in the world and in your own skin. The lover is what connects a man to, well, everything, to the world, to other people, to his own soul. It's where empathy comes from, artistic passion, spirituality. Without the lover, those other three archetypes can become cold and robotic. The lover is what makes a man human. And the lover's shadow is intense. Its active pole is the addicted lover, always restless, endlessly chasing the next high without any boundaries. Its passive pole is the impotent lover, the man who feels sterile, flat, bored, just disconnected from himself and everyone else. It's the difference between being drowned in sensation and being completely unable to feel anything at all.
So, how do we get from that boy psychology to an integrated man psychology? Well, the path isn't something that just happens. It's a conscious, personal journey of inner work, a kind of self-initiation.
When a man is accessing all four of these archetypes in a healthy, balanced way, he becomes whole. He's got the king-centered order, the warrior's decisive action, the magician's deep insight, and the lover's passionate connection. They don't just exist separately. They work together, enriching and humanizing one another. But you might be wondering, okay, how do I actually do this? The book gives us some practical techniques. One is dialogue, literally talking to these inner parts of yourself, maybe by writing in a journal. Ask your inner warrior what he needs. Another is invocation, actively thinking of a role model who really embodies the good king and trying to call on that energy. And a really powerful one is just acting as if. If you need courage for something but don't feel it, you act with courage anyway. The idea is that the feeling will often follow the action. Ultimately, the whole journey is about transformation. The hero archetype, that's like the peak of boyhood, but he has to die. He has to face his limits, his own humanity. And it's that encounter, that death, that allows for the birth of a truly mature, integrated man, guided by these four archetypes. So the book gives us this incredible map to the inner world of the masculine psyche. It's a framework for self-understanding, for growth, and it leaves us all with a pretty powerful personal question to think about. What might your own journey of initiation look like?